And for lots of people who saw the footage, it was a proper pinch-me moment. A troupe of robots on stage in China performing eye-catching martial arts with human-like grace and poise. And if you haven't seen it, take a look. Chinese state television showed these advanced AI-embodied humanoids performing kung fu moves at China's media group's 2026 Spring Festival Gala. It's an event that spotlights the country's tech achievements and fast-growing robotics sector. Now, the live television broadcast also showed robots taking part in comedy sketches and lots of other creative performances. For many experts, the dazzling display has raised questions about China's technological prowess in the ever-intensifying tech race. And it's left many wondering, well, just how capable these humanoids could become, and if those capabilities should concern us. Well, Kenza Ait Si Abbou is an expert and consultant in artificial intelligence. So welcome to the studio, Kenza.
Thanks.
What went through your mind when you saw those pictures?
Well, it looks like a lot of entertainment, and it might be nice. But the question I always keep in mind is, okay, how does this translate to the industry, and how is it helping in real environments?
Right.
And how good is the autonomy in real environments,
Okay,
which
so
is a challenge.
Answer your own question, then. This sort of robotics, is it spectacle, or does it have use?
It can have use if well programmed, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, and so when we look at the future, because one of the things that I always think when I see these robots, I think, well, how much do we actually need a robot to look like a human being? One of the worst things, it strikes me as a non-robotics engineer, if you want to carry something upstairs, you don't want a robot that looks like a human. You want a robot that just rolls upstairs. You don't want to. The whole walking and balancing thing is just a major nightmare, I would have thought.
Well, it depends on the tasks that the robot needs to execute, and sometimes for that you do need legs and hands and fingers. At the same time, the interaction between the human and the machine is easier when the robot is behaving human-like, including the shape.
Yes.
So this is why the development of humanoids is
that's why it's important. It's to do with us, so we need to be able to relate to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
India is currently hosting its AI Impact Summit. That's a global gathering hosted by the government as part of its India AI mission. We're going to hear from an AI expert who is there. This is Stuart Russell. We'll hear from him and then we'll come back to you.
We are training on vast amounts of text, and people say, oh, we're just training a next word predictor. But actually what you're training is a human imitator. The technical term we use in AI for this type of learning is imitation learning, where you observe some behavior and then you train a system to imitate it. The behavior here is verbal behavior, but we are creating human imitators. And so, of course, the natural application for that type of system is replacing humans.
So, Kenza, no.
I said, that's a very bold. That's a very bold statement. I don't know if replacing humans is the goal in every use case. So this is why I reacted like this. But please go ahead with your question.
Well, no, because I was going to say that it's hard to argue with that statement that the purpose of AI is to replace humans. Because give us examples then of where you would use AI that doesn't replace humans.
Okay, so there are strengths that AI has.
Yes.
Anything in terms of automation, quick computing, analysis of huge amounts of data. And then there are strengths of human beings like emotional intelligence, empathy, this body warmth, hugging someone, and the judgment. We still have high strengths in judgment, especially when we're talking in domain expertise. You have the AI that does the heavy lifting and then the data analysis, but you still need to understand and decide, is this something we can show our management? How will they react to it? How will our customers react to it? Are they willing to interact with the machine, or do they need, at this point in time, a person? And all of this is something that humans can navigate very well unless AI.
Okay, take your point there, but let me push back, because one of the arguments raging at the moment is that entry-level jobs into not into AI, but into industry, into commerce, they're being shrunk because AI is now being used to do many of those entry-level jobs. So if they can be trained to do the junior jobs, it's a matter of time, surely, before they're able to do the more senior jobs and give it 5 years, give it 10 years, maybe give it a couple, and you'll end up with just a few tech titans sitting on top of a few managing directors who are just directing AIs, won't you? Isn't that the direction of travel?
I don't think so. So first of all,
that's where we go, because
No.
that's what we see everywhere in the world, where AI is being used more and more. We see layoffs. And
yes, well, okay, but let's differentiate. That's for sure. The entry-level jobs are shrinking. That is a fact. And one of the reasons, but it's not the only reason, this is why we have to be careful here. One of the reasons is because the activities that the entry-level jobs need to do are being replaced by AI because AI is better at this job, right? At the same time, this pushes us to redesign the entry-level jobs. So basically, we don't need the fresh graduates just to do repetitive tasks. We have to think of more advanced ways to teach them. And they should be the ones challenging the AI, right? Because we need them in the future.
Yeah,
this is just short term.
Forgive me, but that's not what's happening in the real world. What's happening in the real world is people are leaving university, people are coming into, are trying to get into entry-level jobs, and finding companies are taking fewer and fewer and fewer of them on, because those jobs, which would have been the pipeline, obviously, to more senior jobs, are now being done by AI. And my long-held question is, well, at some stage, you're going to run out of people to feed that machine. You're going to run out of people who can actually check the machine. But that's what's happening at the moment, not what you said, which is that the jobs for entry level are being redesigned. No, they're not. They're being removed.
Not yet. Okay. And that is the thing. This is a very short-term view, just to reduce those entry-level jobs.
That's where we are at the moment.
Exactly. But then the companies will realize in 3 or 4 years, they have no more experts to make any logical judgments. And then they will need to find solutions to train new experts, right? So the clever ones start now. And another point I wanted to say, in some parts, the technological development is really high, and still we need humans in the loop because the AI is not capable of navigating our chaos, right? We aren't able to simulate all real environments yet. So at this point in time, at least, we still need people. And we are seeing it even today, because we said we're not talking about 5 years. In some areas, AI is really highly developed, and still it's not enough, right? We need to combine. What will happen in the future, I can't tell, because even their technology is developing really quickly. So it might be able to navigate chaos in 5 years much better than it does today.
I wanted to talk about something that's going on at the moment, the India AI Impact Summit. Global tech leaders being brought together with tech leaders from the global south. Be interested in your take on the politics of this. Is this Western companies looking for new markets to exploit or to colonize, or a chance for AI to be used for the benefit of marginalized communities?
I would wish it to be the latter. Right, and I mean, globally speaking, I mean, globally speaking, we have the big forces. We have China with the examples that we just seen, then the US, and then Europe, and the global South is finding their own solutions to these developments. Right, so maybe the capital is not there to invest that high level, similar to US or China, and Europe is being known, at least globally, for regulation, but not for tech development speed. So the Global South is looking for other approaches, let's say, to still play a game in the AI business, but with different values, maybe more based on collaboration between the countries and common developments, and all of this with lower budgets. So it's a different approach.
I want to talk about values, but the values of deployment of this technology. India already using AI at scale in education, agriculture, public services. Talk us through some of the risks that can emerge when deployment moves faster than governance.
I don't see right now that deployment is moving faster than the tech itself. Okay, but you're comparing it with governance. And yes, there is a risk if the guardrails are not clear, and then you have chaos, because everybody has to guess what is right and what is wrong. And this is where that judgment can't be left to the industry or the individual actors. It needs to be coordinated somehow. So this is where governance comes in place, to build the frameworks, to build the guardrails so that it's clear for everybody, okay, this is the framework we are allowed to develop and to deploy and to test, and not beyond.
But we're seeing at least 3 different technology environments, aren't we? We're seeing the North American model, where the United States is effectively told the tech giants will go off and do your thing and we'll stand out of your way. We're seeing what's going on in Europe, which is all about regulation and less about the actual development. So it's still regulation of US-based technologies. And the global south, which is, I don't know, it strikes me as being behind on both counts, both the developing of the technology and the control, the legislation and the laws governing them. So we're in 3 different environments with 3 different approaches at the moment, at least 3.
I'm not so sure they're that much behind the governance parts. They just have a different approach. In Europe, we have a centralized governance, right? There is the AI Act, so there is one regulation on AI. And other countries are following the approach of sector-based. So there is a regulation, let's say, for telecommunications, for finance, for pharma, and they are just adapting those regulations. So it's just a different approach. They're not behind. That's governance, right? So that's on the technological development, maybe, but they're catching up.
Good talking to you. Thank you so much for talking us through that. AI expert and consultant, Kenza Ait Si Abbou. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Google's CEO, Sundar Pichai, has announced plans to build underwater cable links between the US and India. Speaking in New Delhi, he said Google wants to be a partner to what he called India's extraordinary trajectory with AI. World leaders and tech giants are attending a 5-day AI summit in the Indian capital. Just a few kilometres from the conference venue, the district of GB Nagar is emerging as one of the country's biggest data centre hubs. But questions are being asked about the impact on local communities, especially when it comes to water.
This is how Kanta Devi begins her day, carrying water home 1 bucket at a time. Although her family of 6 live in the district of GB Nagar, right on Delhi's border, they have no piped water. They live off just 6 buckets a day.
We use this water for everything: bathing, doing laundry, cooking and drinking. We use it to wash vegetables. Our cooking water is also our drinking water.
A government tanker brings water here at unscheduled times once a day. When it arrives, the street fills with queues. For hours afterwards, women walk back and forth hauling buckets. Authorities once planned to supply 50 million litres of water from the river Ganges per day to this area through a pipeline. But in July 2025, they shelved the project, saying the region's current supply was already under pressure. But just a kilometre away from Kanta's home, another project is moving ahead, and the state government has promised it a round-the-clock water supply. A 50 megawatt data center jointly controlled by India's Adani Group and the US-based operator EdgeConneX is being built here. The joint venture website says it will reduce intensive water use and employ air-cooled chillers in place of water-cooled chillers. Construction workers told us off camera they have installed bore wells inside the complex. To clarify how water is being distributed, we called and even visited the Uttar Pradesh Water Corporation, the agency responsible for water supply and pipeline infrastructure in the area. No one would reply to our queries. India hopes to become a hub for artificial intelligence, and data centers are a key element to Delhi's ambitions. Shalu Agarwal is the director of a Delhi-based climate think tank and warns that unregulated growth could have consequences.
A lot of emphasis on incentives, approvals, be it fiscal, tax, or land-related, or even energy-related, to attract investments into their respective states, and with little focus, or in some cases no focus, on sustainability metrics.
In GB Nagar, groundwater levels have dropped significantly over the last few years, as more water is being taken out than nature can replenish. The new data center will likely only accelerate the pace. But here in GB Nagar, every day still begins the same way, with containers of water and the long walk home.
Well, let's pick up some of the issues raised there with Felicia Liu, who lectures in sustainability in the Department of Environment and Geography at the University of York in the UK. Welcome to DW. And we'll start with the point raised at the end of the report. Tell us more about how the construction of these massive data centres just up the road from a community like GB and Nagar, which we've seen, which we just saw. How is that construction likely to affect their already poor water supplies?
That's an excellent question. I think we need to acknowledge that AI and data centers are very intensive in terms of natural resources. But the real question that we need to ask is, where does the energy and water come from? And the footprint on the environment, and therefore the implications on society and community, depends highly on design, location, and governance.
Okay, so in the example that we gave there, the community in NB Nagar, they can expect to have their already poor water supplies worsened by the construction of this data centre just up the road.
Absolutely. I think if the local water security is already strained, then the additional demand from data centers would come at a significant environmental and social cost. And I also noted the use of air-cooled chillers that might help save water. But then at the same time, we also need to think about the strain on the energy grid, as air-cooled chillers tend to be very energy intensive. And of course, that would have implications on energy security locally, but also carbon emissions and climate goals on a regional or on a national level.
Okay, so that's
the local grid.
I beg your pardon, but that's the micro view. If you look at the macro view, just talk us through the politics there, because is the calculation as finely balanced as it could be portrayed? India's efforts to keep up and thrive in a technology that's taking over the world against the needs of a few thousand people in rural communities, the greater national good against a bit of local inconvenience.
I think this is an excellent question, and I think the balance between environmental, economic, and social benefits is an aspect of sustainability that is not really addressed either in policy or industry circles, not only in India, but in terms of data center construction around the world. And that's why we might be seeing quite a lot of pushbacks from local communities as data center continue to expand in an accelerated manner. Especially when it comes to, local communities, especially in poorer communities, their voices, their perspectives are rarely being fully considered or considered at all when it comes to data center construction. And I think there are ways to balance it, but it requires open conversations and deliberation that takes into account not only the carbon emissions or the energy intensity or the water intensity, but also broader issues such as waste management, such as land use change, but also, long-term job creation, skills development, infrastructure improvement that will bring benefits both to the local economy, but also to the national economic competitiveness.
Okay, so there's a lot to pack in there. Good talking to you. Thank you for talking us through that so clearly. Felicia Liu from the University of York.
Thank you so much for having me.
We can talk about this to Ketan Joshi. He's a climate analyst and a writer based in Oslo. Thank you for your time today. Welcome to DW. That report made it very clear in that case, there's not enough water for the people, but huge data centers being built will depend on massive amounts of water. So just give us a sense of how sustainable in the long term development like this is.
The problem that we're seeing in recent months and years is that the scale of these developments seems to have no real relationship to the constraints of local communities. Most of my energy research and analytical background has been on the energy sector, the power grid. But we often see really, really similar issues emerging in the water space. And that was a really, really striking story. And there are stories like that all around the world of data centers taking up far, far more resources than the local region can sustainably handle.
The use of AI is booming. There's no question about that. There's really no way of stopping what is happening. So let's talk about solutions. How can economic growth, which obviously also brings benefits, how can that and investment in data and AI, how can it be balanced with environmental protection and keeping people's needs in mind?
I'm sorry, just 1 second. Sorry, could you ask your question again?
Of course. I wanted to talk about the solutions. So AI is booming, investment in data is happening around the world. So how can this economic growth... Have we got some...
Many apologies. I think I've lost audio here.
I think we've got some sound issues. Should we just try the question once more? Can you hear us? All right, I think we're going to have to bring that to an end, unfortunately. But that was Ketan Joshi. Unfortunately, you can't hear us, Ketan. We'll try again later. Thanks so much anyway.